READALONG. Hi guys, it's Shanae and welcome back to my channel, and today I am continuing my read-along, for ErHa, and today we are starting with volume 4 of ErHa. I am both excited and nervous, if I'm being honest, because ErHa is one of those where I absolutely live for every single second of it, but a lot of those seconds are painful. So we'll see. I mean, this volume does have yellow in it. It looks cheery. There's like hand holding. They're together here. I'm like cautiously optimistic. But I mean, it's ErHa. I feel like I would be very naive to not at least go in with a sense of skepticism here. Hi. But yeah, all of that to say, I'm very excited to be back with ErHa again, and we have volume 5 coming out relatively soon. I believe it's on the 23rd of April as well, so I did link that one down in the description, like the link for it, because yeah, I'm definitely gonna be ordering that, and we're gonna potentially be reading it directly after volume 4. We shall see. I'm so excited. Also, hi. But yeah, for anyone who's new here, hi, I'm Janae. I do read-alongs of primarily Danmei. I don't think I've read anything other than Danmei yet, and this is my continued foray into ErHa specifically. So yeah, also we're going to be taking a 10-minute break on the hour just for me to stretch my legs, maybe get something new to drink. And I did also, just kind of like to celebrate the fact that we're back with ErHa, I decided to get a mug that is kind of matchy with the cover. I don't know, I was trying. I attempted. But I think that is more or less it. And we still have 3 minutes left to wait, so we'll just give some people the chance to join if they maybe get the notification late. We usually wait about 5 minutes, so we'll start 5 past. I don't think there's anything else that I should be remembering. I hope not. And yeah, just be kind in the chat. That is also no spoilers, obviously, because this is indeed my first time ever actually experiencing the plot of ErHa, so I never have any idea where I'm going with anything ever. I am cautiously hoping and scared that we're going to be picking up directly after the 5 years of Chuaning having, you know, been in stasis or whatever you want to call it, and I'm just scared that maybe once he wakes up he's somehow gonna have regained the memories of his previous lifetime with Moran, because I mean, we did kind of see some of the past reality seeping into his dreams, which is why I'm like kind of wondering if that is a possibility that we might have to deal with in this novel. But I'm holding on to the yellow hope that we have here, so we'll just take it as it comes, I guess. And yeah, I haven't, as I said, I haven't started yet, so we're gonna be starting on page 11 of the physical novel if anyone wants to follow along. But before we do that, and considering we are waiting, let's just quickly appreciate the beauty of this art, because honestly, I think from all of the ones that I own, ErHa is like tied with Heaven Official's Blessing for the most stunning covers, I feel. Which is like, I feel conflicted saying that because I am absolutely in love with Mordu, Modao Zusha. It's my favorite MXTX novel, but definitely Heaven Official's Blessing I feel has the prettiest covers of MXTX. But these are so stunning as well. Oh my word, I did not notice that, like, bare-chested Moran that we just get there. Damn, okay. This looks very domestic. Okay. Anyway, I think we can finally get started. So we are on chapter 120. Shizun goes into seclusion. He was dead. What are you talking about? Okay, we'll see. I didn't miss a book somewhere, did I? The first light of dawn painted the clouds red. Though it was still early, a large number of disciples had already gathered outside the Red Lotus Pavilion. They lined the sides of the pathway in their white mourning robes, their heads lowered and eyes downcast. Dong, dong, dong. The sound of the morning bell rang out from the heaven-piercing tower. Several figures could be seen walking slowly in the distance, bearing a coffin. Xu Zhengyong and the Tian Lang elder walked in front, followed by Moran and Xu Meng. Shimei and the monk dressed in worn robes walked on either side. They approached slowly through the morning fog, following the dew-slick blue stone path. The monk held a lantern. Even in the light of dawn, the lantern's brilliant glow was visible. It emitted a dazzling golden radiance, like summer blossoms. The gathered disciples lowered their heads solemnly, scarcely daring to breathe. They had all heard that Master Huajie of Wurbei Temple had hastened over for the sake of Yu Heng Elder. This unassuming monk must be him. The juniors' reverence towards such a legendary figure far outweighed their curiosity, none daring to look too closely as he made his way up the long mountain path. Thus the great master passed by these reverent disciples, an airy billow of robes in his wake. His passage for them was marked by the tapping of his monk's stick and the occasional glimpse of a hemp-woven shoe in their downcast gazes. The coffin was steadily carried the whole way, yet this was not a burial, but a revival. No one wept. As they reached the Red Lotus Pavilion, Huajie looked around, then said, "Next to the lotus pond, that will do. There's an abundance of spiritual energy there, suitable for spells." "All right, you heard the great master." Xu Zhengyong, leading the others, set the black ice coffin down beside the lotus pond. "Great master, if there's anything you require, only say the word. Saving Yu Heng is as great as saving my own life. If there's anything I can do to help, I will." "Many thanks for Jiangmen's kindness," Huajie said. "This humble monk requires nothing at the moment, but will be sure to inform the sect leader should the need arise. Of course, please do not hesitate." Huajie smiled. He pressed his palms together and bowed respectfully to Zhengyong, then turned to address the others who stood nearby. "This humble monk is unskilled and will need 5 years to bring back Elder Chu's soul. So that this humble monk may not be disturbed, the Red Lotus Pavilion will be closed to visitors from today until Elder Chu's revival." Though Xu Meng had already heard that it would take 5 years for his Shizun to return, at Huajie's reminder, the rims of his eyes grew red once more, and he hung his head in silence. If anyone has any parting words they wish to say to Elder Chu, please do so now. There will be no opportunity otherwise for over 1,000 days. And so they stepped forward one by one. Look, I'm not keen on the fact that technically we won't be seeing Chu Wanning for 5 years, but the thing I am keen on is the fact that in 5 years' time, Moran is going to be 20, which I'm much more comfortable with, considering the direction that I think the relationship is about to go in. Xu Zhengyong and the Sishing Peak elders went first, each taking their turn to stand solemnly before the coffin and say their farewells. Xu Zhengyong said, "Let us meet again soon." Tan Lang said, "Wake up soon." Xuanji said, "Hope everything goes well." And Lu Kun said with a sigh, I kinda envy you, frozen in time for 5 years like this, and not aging a day. I mean, that feels weirdly realistic. There would be that one person. The rest of the elders all said their piece, some with long spiels and some with short ones. In no time, it was Shumeng's turn. Shumeng had every intention of holding it together, but the young man had always been ruled by his emotions, and this was no exception. He stood next to Chuaning's coffin and began to cry. Oh, goodness. Between sobs, while vigorously wiping away his tears, he managed to choke out, Shizun, I'll train hard. Even without you around, I definitely won't embarrass you at the spiritual mountain competition. I'll tell you all about how high I ranked when you wake up. My Shizun has no losers among his disciples after all. Shizhengyong walked over and clapped his son on the shoulder. Shumeng didn't cling to his father as he usually did, instead turning away with a sniffle. In front of his Shizun, he didn't want to look yet again like a useless person, spoiled child who relied on his father for every little thing. Next was Shimei. His eyes were wet as well, but he didn't say anything. He only looked at Chuaning for a time with his head bowed before quietly backing away. The conflictions I feel about Shimei, because on the one hand I want to just believe in the goodness that is Shimei, and then on the other hand I'm so suspicious of him. After Shimei retreated, a pale pink high-tongue blossom was placed gently into the coffin. The slender hand that held it, though still youthful, was already approaching the length and span of an adult. Moran stood at the coffin's side. A breeze danced over the surface of the water in the pond, carrying the soft, sweet fragrance of blooming lotuses. The breeze tousled his bangs, but when he lifted his hand, it was to brush Chuaning's face. Moran pressed his lips together. He looked as if he had many things he wanted to say, but in the end, all that came out, soft and slightly hoarse, was, I'll wait for you. Wait for what? He didn't specify. He'd considered saying, I'll wait for you to wake up, but those words seemed somehow insufficient. There was no way to express the feelings close to bursting the vessel of his chest, as though there was a pool of scalding lava in his heart, trapped and boiling, slamming against the walls and bringing him pain and anxiety. It felt like it was only a matter of time before those walls were breached, and the lava would spill out uncontrollably, the raging flow melting him to ash. But even now he was still unsure what that burning feeling was, so he only said, I'll wait for you. With this, the Red Lotus Pavilion was shut and barred. An enormous barrier came down like a gate, separating life from death, denying entry to all. For the next 5 years, no one would be allowed the fragrance of lotus blossoms in the summer, not the quiet solitude of winter snow within the pavilion. Bamboo leaves rustled in the wind, and high-tongue blossoms drifted slowly to the ground. From outside the Red Lotus Pavilion, all the way to the main gate, disciples dropped to their knees and bowed. At the end of this vast river were Moran, Shumeng, and Shimei. Shizhengyong announced in a booming voice that rang throughout the skies and forests, wishing Yuheng Elder well in his seclusion. The disciples, their heads bent to the ground, echoed solemnly, wishing Yuheng Elder well in his seclusion. Thousands of overlapping voices rose as one, rumbling from the mist-shrouded Shizun peak and startling birds into flight. Their calls filled the sky as they circled the treetops, afraid to land. The mass of voices rose heavenward, rolling like thunder through streaming clouds. Wishing Shizun well in his seclusion, Moran said in a soft voice. He bowed for a long time. 5 years of waiting. Okay, that was weirdly an intense first scene. I do worry because they had a, like, quote-unquote maniac on the loose, in the previous book. So is he just waiting for them for these 5 years? I'm really concerned that he's just gonna have 5 years to grow super strong. I hope Moran also has 5 years to grow super strong though. Okay. Let me just check something. After Yuheng went into seclusion, each of his 3 disciples, unwilling to take another elder as their teacher, even temporarily, trained and cultivated on their own. For various reasons, aptitude, cultivation path, other such factors, Shimei and Shumeng stayed at the peak. Moran chose to travel. It was true that he really did learn better through experience, but that wasn't the only reason for his choice. So many things had turned out differently in this reborn life. Beyond Chuaning's unexpected death, Moran was also still greatly worried about the fake Gu Chen. He suspected that the person behind all this might have been reborn too. After all, whoever it was, they were arguably quite proficient with the Jinlong chess formation. Yet no one else in his previous lifetime, all the way up until he'd taken his own life, had been capable of utilizing this forbidden technique to the extent he'd witnessed in the course of their repeated encounters. Moran had no talent for sleuthing. Ever since the battle at Butterfly Town, the entire cultivation world had been on high alert, waiting and watching for that mysterious actor to slip up and expose themselves. He didn't really need to get involved. Moran knew he wasn't exactly smart. His strength lay in his abundance of spiritual energy and his natural aptitude for cultivation. Since the future confrontation was likely inevitable, the most productive thing he could do right now was to recover his pre-rebirth battle powers as soon as possible. In his last life, he had been a destroyer. In this one, he wanted to be a protector. The strides this man has taken, I am so proud of him. Like, I know he's not done growing yet, but he's come a long way. After Chuaning went into seclusion, Moran stood before the main gate of Shizun Peak, a travel bag slung over his back, ready to set off on his journey. Only a few people had come to see him off: Zhu Jingyong, Madame Wang, and Shimei. Zhu Jingyong clapped him on the shoulder and said, a little awkwardly, "Mengar won't be coming," he said. Moran chuckled. He said he'd been too busy training in the forest to see me off, right? After a brief, mortified silence, Zhu Jingyong swore. That thoughtless brat. Moran smiled. He got his heart set on fire. Set on fire, no, that's not what it says. He's got his heart set on first place at the spiritual mountain competition. It's only natural he's diligent while training. I'll leave it to him to add some glory to Shizun's name. Zhu Jingyong looked at Moran, then said hesitant, "The spiritual mountain competition is the foremost tournament in the world of traditional cultivation. I'm sure Renard will grow and learn much in his travels, but the competition will probably bar that kind of hodgepodge techniques you're going to pick up out there. It'd be a pity for you to end up missing out because of that." "My cousin's got it covered," Moran replied. "Don't you want to make a name for yourself?" At that, Moran actually burst out laughing. Make a name for himself. In his previous life, he had missed the spiritual mountain competition because he had committed some wrongdoings and had been punished with confinement. He had always felt resentment over it, but now that same thing seemed so insignificant. What did it even matter? He was someone who had seen so much death and so many partings, awash in an endless flood of trials and tribulations. He was someone who had gone from defiant to hopeful, from hopeful to resentful, from resentful to relieved, and from relieved to remorseful. The Moran of the present no longer cared for beauties and fine wines or the worship of the masses. much less for things like revenge or the thrill of killing and destruction. He had already seen for himself the boundless opulence and luxuries at the apex of the world, and he had grown tired of it all. He didn't want to go back to such a cold place with no one by his side. After all, he had once been Emperor Taishianjin. He had stood upon the mightiest peak with the world in the palm of his hand, and he had seen all there was to see. Of course he wouldn't care about trifling things like some measly applause or a couple of cheers at the spiritual mountain competition. And as for the rankings, whoever wanted it was welcome to it. There are other things I'd rather do, Moran said with a smile. Shimung is a young master, and young masters have their own lifestyles. I'm just a loafer, and loafers lead their own loafing lives. Madame Wang chided gently. Silly child, what are you saying? You're no different from Mangar. What's with young master this and loafer that? Moran laughed cheekily, but felt a small pang inside. One had been born into the lap of luxury, while the other was of low, petty birth. Although he had been so immensely fortunate as to wind up here at Shizun Peak, he had nevertheless spent the first 10 or so years of his life in a murky haze. How could he and his cousin possibly be the same? But he couldn't really say any of that to Madame Wang, not when she was looking at him with that gentle, concerned expression, so he only nodded and said, Auntie is right. I misspoke. Why is this already painful? Like, it shouldn't be painful. Nothing bad is happening yet. I believe we're already 20 minutes in. Madame Wang shook her head with a smile and handed him a small jinkun pouch embroidered with perlia, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, flowers. You'll have to look after yourself while you travel. Take this. It's filled with all kinds of medicine for treating injuries. I compounded them myself, so they're more effective than what you can buy in any store. Make sure to keep safe. Thanks a lot, Auntie, Moran said gratefully. Shimei spoke next. I didn't have much of anything to give you besides the jade pendant. Here, wear it. It warms your spiritual core. In Moran's hand, the white jade was creamy smooth and warm to the touch, an exceedingly rare, high-grade item. He hurriedly pressed the jade pendant back into Shimei's hand. I can't accept this. It's far too valuable. Besides, my spiritual core is a fire elemental to start with. If it's warmed any further, I might have a chi deviation. Shimei laughed. Don't be silly. What do you mean, chi deviation? In any case, I'm not taking it. Moran stood firm. You have a weak constitution. It'd do you more good than it would me. But I had someone purchase it at the Shizun pavilion auction just for you. Moran felt warm at his words, but more than that, his heart ached for him. Then it must have been really expensive. This jade pendant really won't do much for me, but it'd be great for you, Shimei. I appreciate the thought, but please keep it for yourself and remember to wear it so that it can nurture your spiritual energy. Before Shimei could reply, Moran uncoiled this thin cord and looped the jade pendant around Shimei's neck. It looks good on you, he said with a grin, then lifted a hand to pat him on the shoulder. Why does this feel like that pendant had some spell on it and Moran just accidentally activated that spell on Shimei? I really hope that's not the case. Much better than it would on me. I'm such a rough and tumble kind of person. I'd probably break something like that in 2 days. Renara is right. The jade pendant can be worn by anyone, but it's best for people with water elemental spiritual cores. Mayar, you should keep it. Now that even Madame Wang had spoken, of course Shimei had to concede. He nodded and said to Moran, "Take care of yourself then. Don't worry, I'll write to you often." Despite his own sorrow at having to say goodbye so soon, Shimei couldn't help but smile at that. "You do realize only Shizun can read your handwriting, right?" The mention of Chuaning left Moran with a feeling he couldn't describe. The hatred that had gnawed at his very bones had dissipated, but the remorse lingered, like a wound scabbed over, a dull, itchy ache in his heart. Holding that feeling in his chest, Moran set off down the mountain alone. 1, 2, 3. He counted in his head as he walked, head bowed. 101, 102, 103. At the foot of the mountain, he couldn't help but look up towards Shizun Peak, shrouded among the high clouds, up the long flight of stone steps that seemed to rise without end. He murmured, 3,799. Did he just count the amount of steps that Chuaning had to drag him up with his own pained body? Because, I mean, it's good that he's appreciating Chuaning's sacrifices, but there's no use torturing yourself over these things, Moran. It's just gonna consume you, and there's 5 years that you have to hold out. If this entire book is with a missing Chuaning, I'm gonna be in a lot of pain. Okay. He had counted as he walked. That was the number of steps up to the main gate. The number of steps that Chuaning had climbed the day, carrying him on his back. He was certain that for as long as he lived, he would never forget Chuaning's hands, cold as ice, chafed raw and bloody. The truth of the matter was, whether a person did a good or committed evil was rarely ever a feature of their inherent nature. Each person was like a plot of farmland. Some were lucky, and their fields were sowed with grain which, come autumn, would bear an abundant harvest. Paddies awash with the gentle fragrance of rice, fields of wheat rolling in the wind like waves. Looking out on the land, one would find it to be good and praiseworthy, but others were not so lucky. Their fields were planted with poppy seeds, and the spring breeze brought only the miasma of intoxicated sin and euphoric decadence, filling the skies and blanketing the land with that vile, bloody red and gold. The people abhorred it, cursed and feared it, even as they indulged in its blissful stupor, rotting away before its filthy stench. In the end, the righteous and upstanding would gather to set fire to the field, and as the twisted smoke rose into the sky, they would say, "Oh, he was a breeding ground of sin. He was a demonic fiend. He was vicious and ruthless. He had no conscience. He deserved it." All while he convulsed in the blaze, crying out in pain as the poppies shriveled into charred, muddy morass. But this person had once been a plot of good farmland too. He had once wanted nothing more than the water and the sunlight. Who was it who had planted that first seed of darkness, who sowed the disaster that grew out of control? That plot of land, once temperate and lush, went up in flames and sank into ash, laid fallow. Moran was a plot of unwanted, abandoned land. He never thought someone would come into his life to plough these fields again, would give him a second chance. Chuaning. It would be 5 years before he could see him again. Today was day 1. He found himself already missing Chuaning's face, his stern, angry, gentle, serious, steadfast face. Moran slowly closed his eyes. He recalled his lives, past and present, So many bygone days scattered like snow in the wind. He realized that the Heavenly Rift incident had, in fact, been the greatest crossroads of his life. In his last life, he had loved someone dearly. Later, that person had given up his life, and Moran had fallen into hell. In this life, there was someone who loved and protected him. Later, that person had given up his life and brought Moran back to the world of the living. Oh, wow, okay, that is a lot to unpack. Sorry, my mind is just going like a mile a minute right now because it's kind of interesting that one person's death sent him into an absolutely dark spiral and the other person's death was his wake-up call, essentially. That is a very interesting juxtaposition. But I already feel very overwhelmed. Okay. Chapter 121. Shizun is the real Zhongshi. Okay? On the 8th day after Moran's departure, Xu Jingyong received the first of his letters. The brushstrokes on the paper were a messy scrawl that the author had clearly made a valiant yet futile effort to meet him. Oh goodness. Uncle, I hope this letter finds you well. I am at Blossom Crossing today, and everything is going fine. There was an evil spirit here a few days ago, but luckily no one was hurt. I've already taken care of the pesky water spirit, so the farriers might come and go safely again. The boatswain paid me 500 in silver notes, which I've included with the letter. Please give Auntie and Shizun my regards. On the 120th day, the 22nd letter. Uncle, I hope this letter finds you well. I recently chanced a high-quality spiritual stone that may be embedded into Shumeng's long-chin blade to make a truly peerless weapon. It still won't be a holy weapon, but it should make for a fine improvement regardless. Please give Auntie and Shizun my regards. Whoa. On the 130th day, the 24th letter. Uncle, I hope this letter finds you well. Lately, I've been cultivating at the Snow Valley. It's always cold here, and there are all kinds of unusual flora, of which the frost lotus is the rarest. I didn't quite have the skills to get past the 1,000-year-old ape monster guarding the flower field at first, but I've made good progress in recent days and managed to pick a dozen or so, which I've included in this letter. Please give Auntie and Shizun my regards. Oh, goodness. Often the letters came attached to small playthings, medicinal herbs, or spiritual stones. Aside from writing to Xu Jingyong, Moran always wrote privately to Shimei. The letters detailed the places he went and the things he saw, asked Shimei how he was, and reminded him to dress warmly, as well as other such trivial matters. The handwriting on these started off a mess, full of mistakes, and although the penmanship never improved to the point that it looked good, as time went on, it gradually straightened into something neat and mature, with fewer and fewer errors. Thus did 1 year pass in the blink of an eye. One day, as Xu Jingyong was savouring the fresh spring tea, another letter from Moran arrived. He read it with a smile, then passed it to Madame Wang, whose lips also curled at the corners as she read. His penmanship has certainly gotten better. Doesn't it look just like a certain someone's? Really? Oh my word, okay. Whose? Xu Jingyong blew on his tea leaves, then retrieved a copy of... Oh goodness, I'm gonna struggle. Barrier of Ancient Barriers from his desk. Compared with Yu Hong's. Pretty similar, huh? Madame Wang examined the scroll and said with surprise, It really is. He took Yuheng as teacher when he first came to Shizun Peak after all. Yuheng tried to get him to read, but he knew just a handful of characters, so Yuheng spent some time teaching him. He started with his name, then simple vocabulary, before moving on to more complex subjects. Shizhen Yong shook his head. That boy didn't take it seriously back then, always putting down some chicken scratch just to get it over with. But look at him now, he's finally learning to write decently. Madame Wang said with a smile, "Going out to see the world is doing him wonders. He seems much more mature now." Shizhen Yong was smiling as well. Wonder what he's going to be like after the 5 years of traveling. How old will he be then? 22? 22. Shizhen Yong sighed, and with a hint of regret, "I thought Yuheng would watch them grow into their 20s, but the heavens had their own plans." Don't make me cry, Shizhen Yong. I cannot. I don't wanna. Indeed, the heavens had their own plans. That's what Moran thought as well. He travelled far and wide, from the misty rains of Jiangnan in the south to Sanguang Pass north of the Great Wall. He sat on the banks of the Tulao River and chugged rice wine in the summer, then huddled by campfires and listened to the melody of the Cheng flutes in the winter. In his previous life, Moran had owned all the lands under the heaven after declaring himself emperor, yet he had never once taken the time to walk them, to see with his own eyes the lanterns and fishing boats of the east, or the underground aqueducts of the west, never bothered to note the dark, toughened, and cracked soles of a porter's feet who carried load-laden poles over cobblestone roads, never stopped to listen to the singing of the young trainees in an opera troupe, their voices pitched like ripping silk, rising into the skies. Such brilliant splendor, blooms flourishing abundant against a backdrop desolate, walls ruined and decrepit. He wasn't Ta Jin anymore. He wouldn't ever be Ta Jin again in this life. He was Da Ge. In the tender voice of the child from the street stall, "Da Ge, can you save this birdie? Its wing is broken. I don't know what to do." Little Xianjun, in the aged, raspy voice of the Shiju village in the aged, raspy voice of the village leader. Okay, that's a bit of a weird sentence. Thank you. All of us here are too old to contend with evil spirits. If not for you, we would have had to abandon our homes and go elsewhere. This old one will never forget Xianjun's kindness as long as he lives. "Kind sir," in the trembling voice of a beggar woman in the streets. "Kind sir, my child and I haven't had a real meal in days. Please, won't you be so kind?" Moran closed his eyes. He opened them again. There was someone calling him. "Mo Zhongshi." Oh, why am I suddenly weary over the fact that someone's using his name? But also, I'm wondering if the title of the chapter is implying that Moran is really following in the footsteps of Chuaning and kind of like embodying Chuaning in the sense that he is taking care of the people who can't take care of themselves in the same way that Chuaning tried to do. I feel like I might need to take a break just a little bit earlier because I feel like I'm struggling a little bit now. We'll see. Stung by this form of address, he looked up at the sun-tanned fellow calling for him and said helplessly, "I'm no Zongshi. That's my Shizun. Please don't call me that." The man scratched his head bashfully. "Sorry about that. I know you don't like it. It's just force of habit, 'cause everyone in this village calls you that." Presently, Moran was staying in a small village near the border of the lower cultivation realm. Owing to the snowy mountains that towered a few miles away, the village was often troubled by snow ghosts. Such creatures were minor nuisances with a little spiritual power. One of the Shizun's holy night guardians would have easily taken care of them, but this village was far too remote for this use of holy night guardians to have spread here. So, with very few options, Moran had tried to construct one himself, following Shizun's diagrams. He failed many times before finally managing one. It wasn't as good looking as the Shizun's, not as nimble, but the creaking wooden automaton was at least serviceable. Chuaning would be so proud of him. Of course he wouldn't say it, but he would be. The people of the backwater village, delighting in this curious new marvel, had started calling him Mo Zongshi. Moran felt nothing but awkwardness of the development, but the more awkward event was yet to come. One particular evening, half the sky dyed red by the setting sun. Moran was returning from lectures at an academy on Mount Taishan. As he strolled along the busy alleyway alongside an apricot grove, he heard someone call, "Not the frickin' groves again." Sorry, that is me, that is not the book. I'm just thinking back to the orange grove that we had, that weird guy that apparently is the chess piece formation dude who just stuffed oranges into that poor girl's mouth. That's all I'm thinking about right now. Ugh. So sorry if I hurt your guys' ears. That was not well thought out. Okay, let's try this again. He heard someone calling, "Shizun shi." Huh? Without thinking, Moran's head whipped around. Then he almost laughed as his brain belatedly caught up. There were plenty of cultivators out there with the surname Chu. He really was getting ahead of himself, thinking his Shizun had somehow awoken already. Of course not. Moran shook his head with a smile and was just about to turn back around when the call came again. "Shizong shi." Arms around his pile of books, Moran squinted into the crowd. Someone was waving at him, but the person was too far away for him to see his face. He could only vaguely make out his clothing and build. It was a young man dressed in blue cultivation garb, with a bow on his back and a wolf at his side. The caller walked over briskly. Once they were close enough to recognize each other, both were caught by surprise. "You're Moran." He reacted first with a nod of his head, his hands being occupied with books. His curious gaze paused on the young man's face. "Fancy meeting you here, Nan Gong Gongzi." As it turned out, the one calling him Chuzongshi was none other than the squoin of the Rufeng sect, Nan Gong Se. This guy had died too early in his past life for Moran to have met him then, but not so Chuaning. Shizun had once been a guest instructor at Rufeng sect, so it was only natural that Nanggong Se knew him well. As Moran studied the young man before him, the quiver in Nanggong Se's hand caught his eye. It was an old quiver made of cloth, so worn, and camellias embroidered on its surface had faded. Their once vibrant petals yellowed with time, as if even flowers of cloth and thread couldn't escape the fate of wilting away. That is a beautiful description, damn. Nanggong Se was neat and well dressed from head to toe, save for the threadbare, visibly patched quiver. Moran could tell at once that this quiver was precious to him. After all, didn't everyone have a handful of sentimental objects? Even the flashiest person surely had some memories they held dear. No one was heartless, however they might appear. Nothing was so simple. I wonder if one could apply that to the chess piece formation, dude. I don't know necessarily. Nankung's brows drew together in thought. Moran. Ah, I remember now. Shizun's disciple. With the realization, Nangong's attitude improved somewhat. My bad, your clothing and silhouette looked rather like Zongshi's. Well, that's a compliment, I guess. From a distance, so I thought he had come out of seclusion early without me knowing. Moran tore his gaze away from the quiver, tactfully deciding not to pry as he replied without missing a beat. When you called his name earlier, I also thought Shizun had come out of seclusion ahead of time without me knowing. Nangongsa burst out laughing. Maybe because of his lofty birth, his handsome features still retained a measure of arrogance, even in the grips of mirth. This arrogance of his was different from Shumeng's. Shumeng had a conceited pride born of skill and talents, while Nangongsa had a touch of belligerence, a headstrong, fierce kind of arrogance. But born as he was in the lap of luxury, this kind of attitude only made him seem wild and audacious rather than frightening. Moran couldn't help musing that Nangongsa really was the spirited stallion his given name implied. He was still lost in thought when he heard Nangongsa say, I was absolutely gutted to hear that Chuzongshi lost his life in the Heavenly Rift. Thankfully, he can be revived under the Great Master's guidance. I'll definitely pay a visit to Shizun Peak once he wakes up. We'll be looking forward to it. Nangongsa waved a nonchalant hand. Noting the books in Moran's arms, he asked curiously, What's Moshong up to? Studying. Nangongsa had imagined Moran must be studying some complicated esoteric scrolls, only to find, on closer inspection, that he carried such a simple classic as a Carefree Wandering and Book of Rites. Nangongsa was momentarily dumbfounded. These are all fundamental readings, books I learned by heart when I was a kid. What are you doing reading these? When I was a kid, Moran replied, his gaze clear and unashamed. I didn't even know how to write my own name. Nangongsa coughed awkwardly. You studying at an academy? Yeah, I was collecting spiritual stones for cultivation on Mount Taishan a while back and happened to see that classes were starting at Apricot Grove Academy. I have some free time right now, so I've been attending the lectures. Nangongsa nodded. Seeing that it was getting late, he said, Say, Moshong Moshong hasn't had dinner yet, right? Since you're in Rufeng sect territory and Chuzong's disciple to boot, let me be a proper host. I'm actually on my way to a restaurant close by to meet up with a companion. So how about it? Join us for a drink? Okay, bets up. Do we think the companion is the woman that used to be Moran's lover in the previous life, the butterfly bone wara wara wara, or the guy who saved the butterfly bone person? No spoilers, but I'm kind of trying to think whether I could puzzle it out. Okay, let's see. Moran had no plans anyway. How could I refuse such hospitality? We're headed to Wuyu Pavilion then, one of Linyi's most famous restaurants. Nangongsa chatted as they walked. They make the best braised pork intestines. You ever heard of them? Of course I have, Moran grinned. They're one of the top restaurants in the upper cultivation realm. You sure know how to pick a place, Nangongsa. I didn't pick it. Oh? Who did? My companion did, Nangongsa said. She's trying to be elusive for no particular reason, I swear. Having already lived through one lifetime, Moran knew a thing or two about the complicated web of relationships within Rufeng sect. With some surprise, he thought, though he didn't say it out loud, was Ye Wangxi here as well? Okay, Ye Wangxi, that was the guy I was thinking of. He followed Nang Gongse up the stairs, pushing aside the pearl curtains to step into a private booth, but because Moran thought it, I don't think it's going to be him. When he saw who was waiting inside, he nearly choked. It was Song Chutong, there we go. Dressed in light silks and standing before the window, gazing at the peach blossoms outside. She turned as she heard them enter. The golden ornaments that dangled at her temples swayed gently and caught the light so that her skin seemed all the fairer and her lips all the redder, beautiful beyond words. Mid-step into the room, Moran subconsciously pulled his foot back. He wondered if it was too late to tell Nan Gongse that he didn't like Shandong cuisine, and most especially disliked braised pork intestines. I'm stressed. Okay, because I'm struggling a little bit right now, I think I'm gonna take my 10 minutes now and then we'll be back on the hour, or like 1 minute past the hour, for the next section of chapters. Hey, we are back. I hope the audio is still okay. It should be, but always good to just get confirmation if I can. Um, okay, so again, for anyone who is following with their actual physical copies, I just realized I don't have my pillow. We are on page 33, chapter 122, Shizun's reflection. Okay, thank you. Okay. And I have new tea, which I'm very happy about. Here, Mo Xiong, let me introduce you. This is Song Chutong, a little Shimei from my sect. In the end, Moran forced himself to sit at the table and endure Nan Gongse's enthusiastic introductions. Song Chutong, Song Chutong. As if Moran needed Nan Gongse to introduce this woman when he knew well the number of moles on her back, the location of the birthmarks on her thighs. But with great restraint, he schooled his expression and nodded. Miss Song, this is Chugong. We're barely 2 minutes in and I'm already struggling. This is Chuzongshi's disciple, Morwei Ye of Sishan Peak. You likely caught a glimpse of him back at Butterfly Town, but there was a lot of people there. You probably don't remember him. Song Chutong smiled sweetly and stood to make a respectful bow. Chutong is pleased to meet Mo Xianjun. Guys, quickly remind me because some of the things from the previous novel kind of fell by the wayside memory wise. Did she do something despicable where she murdered someone in the previous book? I'm not talking about like past her, I'm talking about like in this timeline. Didn't she do something where we were like, oh my soul, she's already a bad apple? Or am I imagining things here? Um, Moran remained seated. He gave her a long, unreadable look before eventually offering a brisk, likewise. Truth be told, Moran felt an incredible revulsion towards his wife of his past life. This revulsion hadn't only come about after his rebirth, it was something that had permeated deep into his bones even in the last lifetime. The few times he'd crossed paths with her in this one, they'd only met in passing, so he'd managed to tolerate it. Today, however, was another story. Song Chutong was a fragile woman, delicate and soft spoken in every look and gesture. She was like an underripe fruit on the branch in early autumn, hidden behind luxuriant leaves. Her muted scent was less fragrant than that of the surrounding blooms. Her understated colour, not overly loud, but very likeable. A slim yet full figure, flowing with endless gentleness and tender young love, ready to yield its sweet tart juice at the smallest bite. Don't know why I don't like that description. It just. Only after biting deep into the core would the dead, rotten worm within be discovered, pungent and festering, the fruit spotted with mold. Oh. But then again, compared to what Moran had done, it wasn't as if Song Chitong of the last lifetime had acted so abhorrently. All she had done was betray Rufeng's sect, the very sect that had saved her life. All she had done was offer up Ye Wangxi to save herself when Moran razed the city. All she had done was doll herself up as Lin Yi turned into mountains of corpses and oceans of blood around her, overjoyed that she had won Moran's favour and eager to serve her new master. All she had done was vilify Year One Shi after the massacre ended in order to prove her sincerity, pitifully weeping after Year One Shi's silent, dead body, saying how cruel he had been, how he had tormented her daily, how miserable her life would have been if Moran hadn't come. All she had done. Like, that part isn't in the story. That was just me being very frustrated. And Moran pondered in silence. What else had she ever done? Nang Kung Se was an impatient person. A couple of dishes were taking some time to arrive, so went to hurry the kitchen, leaving husband and wife of her previous life alone in the room. Okay, but just to be fair to Moran, not that I'm saying that this excuses his actions or makes them any less than they were, but for most people, that list of sins that she committed would be enough. In the last life, she tortured Chuaning. In this life, she has not done anything too bad, but it seems that she is trying to put herself in a higher position. Okay, so I don't know what it was that I thought. I think maybe I was just confusing the past and the present. I thought she'd done something where no one could see at Butterfly Town, but okay. Mogongze, a toast to you, if you will. She filled his cup with a smile, revealing a glimpse of her white arm from beneath her flowing sleeves, as well as the vibrant dot of cinnabar on her wrist. Suddenly, Moran grabbed her wrist. Song Chitong made a sound of surprise and glanced at him, fright apparent in those delicate, dew-laden eyes. Mogongze, what are you? Moran studied her face for a while, then dropped his gaze to those fair, slender hands. You have nice hands, he said quietly, features cool and distant. Does Miss Song know how to play chess? A little bit. Hands this nice must be quite adept at chess, he continued coldly. Is there some kind of outward sign for someone using the Zhenlong chess formation, and he suspects that the cinnabar thing is that sign on her? I don't think it's her. I mean, it would be a pleasant surprise if it was, because that feels almost too easy, but I don't think it's her. The sound of Nankung's footsteps came from the outside, and his wolf began barking by the door. Pardon me. Moran let go of Song Chitong's slender wrist, then he carefully wiped his hand with a handkerchief. Outside, the rays of the setting sun made a brilliant splash of color upon the dusky sky. Inside, a spread of food made a scrumptious feast for a pleasant spring evening. Moran wore his usual expression, as if nothing had occurred between them at all. Song Chitong had been denigrated for no apparent reason, but she had always been good at abiding indignities, even getting up once during the meal to refill Moran's cup. He had no wish to drink the wine she poured, and left the cup untouched for the remainder of the meal. I also don't think she would. She seems calculating enough from what we saw of her in the past life that I don't think she would be acting like this if she could remember her past life. Moshong, the spiritual mountain competition is coming up soon, Nang Gongsu said. You're a true Zongshi's disciple, so make sure you don't embarrass him. You ready? I'm not going. Nang Gongsu stared at him, flabbergasted. You're kidding, right? I'm serious, Moran said with a laugh. My cousin's got it covered. Every sect's gonna be there. I don't feel like crowding around with everybody. Nangongse still didn't seem to believe him. His piercing brown eyes narrowed like those of an eagle. Moran's eyes were frank and unreserved as he returned his gaze. The eagle stared at the rock until it was satisfied that it really was only a rock, not hiding a cunning rabbit or a sly serpent. He leaned back in his chair, twirling his chopsticks between his fingers, and grinned. Interesting. So I won't be seeing you at the spiritual mountain competition then? Nope. Nangongse put a hand to his forehead and snorted a laugh. Chuzongshi's disciple must really be something to snub such a prestigious competition. Bloody hell, Moran thought to himself. How was he supposed to explain this? It wasn't like he could tell Nangongse that, no, that wasn't it. He was actually an old ghost in his 30s who had come back to life. Why yes, let Tashin Jin play with all these brats still wet behind the ears while a bunch of sect leaders that he had either killed or beaten up in his past life sat around in a circle on those lofty platforms, grading his performance on their little scorecards. What a joke. Why was that so funny? He cleared his throat. It's not that I think it's beneath me or anything. More like I'm no good with orthodox cultivation techniques. I don't want to risk embarrassing Shizun with my shallow learnings. If I go, someone as skilled as Nangongse is much more suited to the competition. Please spare me your teasing. If a guileless little bird like Shu Meng had heard this, he probably would have been overjoyed, like Moran had scratched him in just the right spot. But Nangongse hailed from the Rufeng sect, with its complicated internal politics, and had lost his mother very young. His life had been far less straightforward, so he only smiled a little at Moran's praise, and didn't let it go to his head. He took several big gulps of wine, the jut of his throat bobbing, before wiping his mouth with the sleeve and asking, "Since Mogongse won't be participating, who do you think is going to win this round? Let's have a bystander's unclouded perspective." Moran eyed him, thinking to himself that Nangongse had sure asked the right frickin' person. Who would know the competition results better than he? Other than the fake Guchen, who was in all likelihood also reborn, Moran was the only one in the world who knew how the spiritual mountain competition was going to play out. The winner was Nangongse. The pearl curtain over the entrance of the private room was swept to the side. In the swaying light, a face appeared, half hidden in the shadows. Before either of the men in the room could react, Song Chitong had already jerked to her feet as if stung, a wretched panic on her face as she lowered her head and said apologetically, "Yekongse." Oh no, is she already starting to muddy his name to other people in the sect? I don't remember Ye Wangxi being a bad guy. He seemed really nice in the first few books that we saw him in. The newcomer stood tall and straight, dressed in black robes rimmed with muted gold. Bracers were fastened around his wrists, making for a lean, lithe figure. 3 parts elegant and 7 parts handsome. Whom else could it be but Ye Wangxi? I wasn't talking to you. I mean, you weren't talking at all. Ye Wangxi pushed aside the pearl curtain and stepped into the room without sparing her so much as a glance. His eyes, fixed on one person the whole time, were cold, though with a subtle flicker of some other emotion. Are they a side ship? Does Meat Bun do side ships? I don't know. Nangongse, I was speaking to you. Look up if you can hear me. Nangongse did not look up. Instead, he addressed Song Chitong. What are you doing? Sit down. That's all right, Nangongse. My status is low. I should stand. Nangongse abruptly flew into a rage as his voice rose. Sit down. Song Chutong flinched, clutching the edge of the table in hesitation. Wanting to move on, Ye Wangshi said in a cold voice, "Do as he says." "Thank you, Ye Gongzi." Ye Wangshi turned from Song Chutong as if he hadn't heard. "Nangongse, how long do you plan to drag out this farce? The sect leader's so angry he's about to go mad. Get up and come back with me." "That suits me just fine. I'll take him for a madman and he can take me for a dead. There's nothing to discuss even if I went back. I will not set half a foot into Rufeng sect as long as the order stands." Nangongse spoke clearly and with a pointed pause between each syllable. "Ye Gongzi, kindly see yourself out." Ye Wangshi's hands balled into fists as his entire body trembled minutely. Watching from the sidelines, Moran half expected him to kick the table over, grab Nangongzi, and bodily drag him off. But Ye Wangshi was a gentleman through and through. After a moment, he managed to smother the raging flames of his anger. There was a long silence. "Nangongzi?" When Ye Wangshi spoke again, it was in a hoarse, exhausted voice, at odds with his upright appearance. "Do you really have to go this far? And what if I do?" Ye Wangshi closed his eyes and let out a nearly imperceptible sigh, before slowly opening them again. Standing in front of the table, he finally turned to cast a glance at Moran's direction. Just as a family's dirty laundry should not be aired in public, a sect's internal matters were likewise best kept from outsiders. Moran tactfully rose and bowed to Ye Wangshi. "You know, I just remember I have an appointment to pick up some clothes at the tailor, and I really shouldn't keep the shopkeeper waiting. I should head off." "Moran, I know you're terrible at snooping. You self-admittedly said it just a few chapters ago. But this is where you should snoop." Ye Wangshi nodded. "Many thanks, Mo Gongzi." "Not at all. Take your time chatting." Moran glanced at Ye Wangshi as he strode past. The young man was like a sturdy pine tree, holding himself with the same poise he always did. But this close, Moran could see a faint redness at the corners of his eyes, as though he had been crying just before he came. He suddenly felt that Ye Wangshi's silent forbearance was not unlike Chuaning's. "Yay! Our Moran is getting clues here. He's starting to develop some emotional intelligence. It's wonderful." Moved by impulse, he found himself turning to address Nangongzi. "Nangongzi, I may not know what's happening between you and Ye Gongzi, but I do know he's always genuinely treated you well. So if you're willing, please have an open chat with him, and don't hold back what you want to say." Nangongzi had a little appreciation for this advice. In the heat of the moment, he discarded etiquette and coldly replied, "Mind your own business." This short-lived punk, Moran left. He hadn't even gone down the stairs when he heard Nangongzi's furious bellowing from the room above as the wolfish young man tore into Ye Wangshi's soul with his sharp fangs. "I don't want to hear this." "Ye Wangshi, what sorcery did you use on my father that he thinks more highly of you than he does of me? Go back with you. What the hell for? All my life, when have I ever been given a choice in anything, huh? Tell me, Ye Wangshi. What exactly do you all take me for?" There came the crash of tables and chairs toppling over, and the smashing sound of plates and cups falling to the floor. Every maidservant in the corridor was startled by the noise, and several other guests peeked out from their own rooms. "What's going on?" "Ayo, what a temper. Hope they don't crash the place." Moran pressed his lips together, turning his head to look down the corridor again. He could hear Ye Wangshi's voice, brittle and lifeless as a withered leaf in autumn. "Nangong, If it's my presence back home that's upsetting you, then I'll leave and you'll never have to see me again. Oh, I don't like this. Because I think Moran was spot on, and I think Yewangshi has feelings for Namkongse. Oh no. A long silent pause. So come back, Yewangshi continued. I'm begging you. If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, Moran would have never believed that someone like Yewangshi, with his ramrod straight spine, would ever utter words so weak as I'm begging. His impression of Yewangshi was an immovable person of integrity, an invincible force on the battlefield. It was far easier for Moran to picture him bleeding than crying, to envision him dying than kneeling. But on the very day, in the very restaurant, in front of Song Chitong, Yewangshi had said to someone, I'm begging you. Moran closed his eyes. Over the span of a person's life, how many things would they never know, never find out? No one stood bare in front of others. Everyone hid their bodies under clothes and their feelings behind words and expressions. Everyone wrapped themselves in layers upon layers, their heads emerging like flowering branches, offering the world only a painted face with an unambiguous look. Each played their own role, for life was but a play. The roles definite and clear-cut, Sheng, Dan, Jing, and Cho. If someone had always played Sheng, the male role, how could they simply accept a change of costume and a new layer of paint to play Dan, the female role, instead? Oh, this is heavy. Yes, they should be a side couple. Moran once described that when Yewangshi died, he asked to be. Oh, no, that is super sad. That's a lot of pain, okay? But in the dead of night, when the sibyls ceased and the lutes faded, when everyone had washed off their thick layers of makeup, the water would carry away the colourful, distinctly painted faces they'd worn, revealing the unfamiliar features beneath. It would turn out that the stage's young lady was actually a gallant young man, and the soldier had a pair of tender, infatuated eyes. Moran returned to the small room he had been staying in, deep in thought. He had lived 2 lifetimes, but how much did he really understand people, and what of himself? Chuaning alone had been enough to make his heart blossom and then die, only to revive again. Chuaning. His thoughts drifted back to when Nan Gongse had mistaken him for Chuaning earlier in the day. He had thought it funny. How did such a mix-up even happen? Yet as he washed before bed in front of the copper mirror, he found himself staring at the reflection of someone in a simple white cultivator's robe, with his hair high in a ponytail. He had tied his hair up in a ponytail on a whim this morning. As for the robe, his clothes had begun to feel tight a few days ago, so he had gone to the tailor to pick out a new set, and the white robe had caught his eye. As he walked through the store, he'd bought it and put it on without much thought. He hadn't considered why the robe was pleasing to his eyes. Only now, while looking in the mirror, did he realize. The white robe was very similar to one Chuaning had once worn. The mirror was dull yellow, and his past life was like a dream. Looking at the person in the mirror, Moran felt that he was looking at a fragment of Chuaning through this muddy colour, a hallucination of him, muted, as if in a vision. We're not even in a sad part and I'm just ready to cry. This is not going well. He had not yet wiped from his face, streamed down the gradually maturing lines of his jaw and dripped from his chin. Before the mirror, he vaguely recognized that, just as his holy night guardian was a clumsy imitation of Chuaning's, He himself was also clumsily trying to imitate his Shizun. Moran had been unconsciously looking for Chuaning's shadow in the world. Unable to find him, he had instead slowly become him. Sorry. Time marched on, and I, due to remorse, or perhaps something else, I couldn't see you. But always I thought what you would do if you were here. Why am I crying? What would make you smile? What would make you mad? I thought about you before doing anything. Tried to make you proud with everything I did. I thought, if you were here and I did this, would you not? Would you be willing to praise me a little? Say I did okay? Day after day I thought about this until it had permeated my very being, become second nature. That's why, as time went on, I never even realized that as the days had passed, I'd grown into the you I held in my heart. Thank you for that. Damn, okay. This does not bode well. We still have half an hour left. I don't know if I'm gonna survive. Chapter 123. Shizun visits my dreams, for he knows I think of him often. Zhao Dao Zhang, Li Dao Zhang, have you seen the rankings yet? The dark horse of the spiritual mountain competition is really something this time. Within Pearl Tea House, a group of travelling cultivators sat at a table, sharing a plate of peanuts, hot tea, and the hottest topic of the Jianghu between them. Of course I have. Who expected the winner to be Shizun Peak, that sect from the lower cultivation realm? All the old foggies in the upper cultivation realm have got their knickers in a twist, especially Rufeng sect. Their ancestors are turning in their graves. What was the winner's name again? Shufeng Huang? Shufeng Huang? Oh, Zhao, please, you're killing me over here. Feng Huang? You're mixing it up with his nickname, Son of the Phoenix. His surname is Shu, given name Meng, courtesy name Jimeng, and his old man is Shu Zhengyong, like father, like son. This Shu Jiming is impressively skilled. I didn't want to say it, and I probably should have, but I thought maybe it would be Shu Meng who won this because he has like this newfound drive to prove himself an extra amount. So I just thought maybe it would be enough to kind of like change the course of things in that regard. But I wonder how this is gonna affect things. Like, there's so many big things that have already happened that are changing the course of things, but I feel like this might have a bigger effect than we might expect. I don't know. Okay. A tall man in a cloak sat by a fireplace, drinking butter tea and minding his own business. When he overheard their conversation, the cup by the man's lips stilled, hovering undrunk as he uttered a quiet, I hope it is Moran and not the fiend with the chess pieces. They seriously weren't kidding when they called him the son of the phoenix. Every other little young master in there had a holy weapon, but this kid showed up with just a scimitar and has them cornered. Truly incredible. Did you forget who his master is? Of course a disciple of Yu Hong of the Night Sky doesn't mess around. Honestly, I think Shu Jiming's win was a narrow one. I'm sure you've heard that Shu Jiming and Nan Gongse were evenly matched in the doubles. If not for the girl on young Nangkong's team dragging him down, it could have gone either way if you asked me. I hope that is not foreshadowing. I really hope that is not foreshadowing. At these words, the man who had been listening intently finally set down the cup of tea he was holding. He turned his head, eyes clear as autumn water, yet intense as lightning. This man had strikingly good looks, to be sure. He flashed a smile at the chatting cultivators and joined the conversation. Pardon my interruption. Lost track of time. So I missed the spiritual mountain competition? I couldn't help but overhear you saying that Shu Meng won first place. Would you mind telling me more? Those cultivators were only too delighted to have an audience. They promptly and enthusiastically gestured for Moran to come over, making room at the table for him. As Moran knew his manner too, he was much more mature now than he would have been when he first began to travel. He asked the proprietress of the tea house to bring over 6 teapots of Lingshan rain, along with candied jujubes, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, tart kernels, sweet liquor cherries, and snake gale melon seeds to share with the table. Smiling, he said, Shizun is the darling of the heavens, so for him to take first place without even a holy weapon isn't too surprising. But what's this I hear about Nangong Sir of Wufeng sect having a young lady on his team in the doubles? Let me guess. He, Nangong Sir and Ye Wangxi were previously doubled and now they're not on good enough terms anymore. I really hope Ye Wangxi is okay. Being a bunch of men, these cultivators were more than happy to gossip about ladies, even if the lady wasn't theirs. That he did, truly a case of hero's ambition sunk in the beauty's bosom. Otherwise, who knows if Xu Jiming would have been able to get the upper hand, given Nan Gong's skills. I see. Interesting. Things had played out quite differently in the last lifetime. Back then, Ye Wangxi and Nan Gongse tied for first place. Oh, interesting. Moran's first thought had been that the little phoenix Shu Meng, spurred by Chuaning's death, had diligently applied himself and soared to success, but it seemed there had been additional factors at work. And who might this lady be? Do you even need to ask, Moran? The lass was named Song something Tong. Don't remember exactly. She sure was pretty though. She's got Wufeng Sect's little young master wrapped around her finger by the looks of it. Pretty's an understatement. Astoundingly beautiful. More like, if I were Nan Gongse, I'd give up first place at Spiritual Mountain to make a girl like that happy too. Moran kept his opinion to himself. It was just as he suspected. The Spiritual Mountain competition included 3 events, singles, doubles, and a battle royale. The scores were averaged across the 3 to determine the ultimate winner. In Moran's previous lifetime, Shu Meng and Shu Mei had faced off against Nan Gongse and Ye Wangxi in the doubles event. Ye Wangxi had eventually gone on to become the 2nd strongest cultivator in the world, outdone only by Chu Wanning, so the outcome of that match was self-evident. Heaven only knew what had gone wrong in this life for Nan Gongse to drag that hindrance Song Chitong behind him instead of teaming up with Ye Wangxi. So, damn it. I'm really scared because I'm getting way too invested in this potential side ship that is probably going to end in tragedy. Okay. Moran set down his teacup and rubbed his temples. What the hell was that guy thinking? Ah, woman. Even that wild horse Nan Gongse has been tamed in no time, one of the men lamented, as the rest laughed and jeered. Moran couldn't help but ask, what about Ye Wangxi? Who? Ye Wangxi, Moran repeated. The blank looks on their faces left a bad taste in Moran's mouth. Ye Wangxi was a war god who'd given Moran endless trouble in his last lifetime. How could these people possibly not know him? You know, oops. Wow, I got way too intense there for a second. My bad. You know. I still stand by the fact that I'm not completely buying Song Ji-tong acting this way if she knew how her previous life ended. But that doesn't mean she isn't maybe working with the person who does have a memory of a previous life. Reason being is if that person saw how much of a threat Ye Wangxi was for Moran in the previous lifetime, he would work very hard not to encourage the growth of that same threat in this lifetime so that he didn't have someone very strong to oppose him. So the perfect way to undermine Ye Wangxi's talent and growth would be to make sure that he doesn't attend major events where his prowess would be tested and his cultivation would grow. So I wouldn't be surprised if she isn't the chess piece formation person, if she were working with the chess piece formation person and they maybe came, I feel like I might have suggested this before, came to her early and was like, hey, you know, these people are gonna come, they're gonna save you, but I need you to help me because for this and this reason. And then I can make you my queen afterwards or something weird like that. Sorry, I'm speculating way too much for things that we're only going to be able to find out in 7 volumes this time. Okay. Okay. How could these people possibly not know him? The other Gongzi from Rufeng sect, he gestured as he explained. Long legs, tall, good temper, doesn't talk much, uses a sword, and watching all their faces devoid of recognition, Moran sighed and finished his description, though he guessed the outcome. And a bow? Don't know him. Never heard of him. Bro, where did you hear of this guy from? Rufeng sect sent 16 disciples to spiritual mountain composition, and not a single one of them was named Ye. Sure enough, in the present lifetime, Ye Wangxi hadn't entered the competition. Moran fell silent for a spell. He recalled that day at the restaurant when Ye Wangxi had said to Nan Gongsi, You come back, I'll leave. He suddenly felt rather uneasy and rather pained. It couldn't be right. Had Ye Wangxi actually left Rufeng sect? In his past life, right before the end, Ye Wangxi had told his executioner that he wished to be buried. Here we go, oh no. Wished to be buried in the Rufeng sect tomb of heroes next to Nan Gongsi's grave. Moran sighed at the recollection. How had things ended up like this? The slight changes, drop after drop, had spread into growing ripples. The world had changed, had turned on its head, and what should have been the ocean had become the land. So it was that turns of fate could be as violent as a raging storm. The change of heart, a reunification? How do you pronounce that? Of past hatred could only be bought with hot blood spilt and bitter tears shed. So it had been with Chuaning and himself. But the turn of fate could also come as a breathless silence, as it was with Ye Wangxi and Nan Gongsi. Maybe all it had taken was that one day at the inn on Rainbow Isle, when Nan Gongsi had allowed Ye Wangxi's group to stay the night. Maybe, late at night, Uncle Sir had gotten thirsty and stepped downstairs for some tea, where he just so happened to run into the pitiful Song Chitong. Maybe Song Chitong had poured him a cup of water, or maybe she had tripped going up the stairs due to the injury on her leg. There was no way to know. It could have been that Nangong Sir had been too boorish when drinking water. Perhaps he had spilled some on the wide lapels of his robes, and Song Chitong had gingerly offered him a handkerchief. With nothing between them at the time, Nangong Sir properly uttered a quick thanks, but none of these three would have known. As the endless northern dipper swept across the night sky and the stars of Shin and Shang rose and sank, never to meet, that their lives had been irreversibly changed by that handkerchief, that cup of water, with simple thanks. None of them had heard the rumble of fate. Nangong Sir yawning as he ascended the stairs, Song Chitong standing silently, watching him go, and Ye Wangxi in his room, lighting a candle to read the next page of an unfinished book. Look, all I'm saying is that if Ye Wangxi gets a sad ending in both lifetimes, I'm rioting. That's my piece. We're not gonna spend too much time on it. I'm just gonna cry after I finish with this. In his past life, Moran had fancied himself all-powerful and all-knowing, had thought he'd seen through all the mysteries of life. Only now did he come to realize that they were, all of them, mere duckweed adrift in the world, pushed about by rain and wind, little green wisps of soul too easily crushed by the stray toss of a pebble. How lucky he had been to have drifted away, yet somehow returned to Chuaning's side, to still be able to perform his filial duty for his Shizun, to still be able to say to Chuaning, I'm sorry I let you down. He finished his tea and bid farewell to his companions. The wind had picked up outside, and the rain would soon follow. Moran threw his cape over his shoulders and strode into the thick depths of the forest. His silhouette grew more and more distant, more and more faint, until it was no more than a small dot in the twilight, like a drop of ink spreading in a pool of water, thinning out until it disappeared. Lightning flashed on the horizon, and thunder cracked through the darkened sky. The rain came in a torrential downpour. It's raining. Someone peeked out from the tea house to look, only to duck back inside at the thunder's intensity. That's one hell of a storm. Damn, I laid millet out to dry it earlier. It's gonna get soaked now. Well, hey, boss lady, can we get another pot of tea over here? Might as well wait for it to clear up before we head home. Oh, I'm suffering right now. Moran walked briskly through the rain, ran through the rain, fled through the rain, hid in the rain from the 32 absurd years of his past life. He didn't know if this violent deluge could wash away his sins. Chuaning might have forgiven him, but he had not forgiven himself. His heart felt heavy, so heavy he felt he might suffocate. He wanted to use the rest of his life to do good, to make amends. But could such a downpour, even for the rest of his life, truly wash away the evil in his bones, the filth in his blood? He wished dearly that this rain could fall for 5 years straight. He wished dearly that, when Chuaning awakened, he could stand before his Shizun a little cleaner, and then cleaner still. He didn't want to be as dirty as he was now when the time came. Dirty like mud, like dust, like the grime on the bottom of a porter's shoe, the dirt under a beggar's nails. He wished dearly that, before Chuaning awakened, he could be a little better, and then better still. Only then could the worst disciple in the world possibly summon up the feeble courage to call out the best Shizun in the world. forgot how good Meat Bun's writing is, but it hurts. Okay. My thing is though, if I'm not misremembering, is the inn that they stayed at when they found Song Chitong originally, the inn where everything changed forever. Is that the same inn where Moran was not hypnotized but like attacked and then kind of like his memory wiped, or was that a different inn? I'm struggling to remember. Because if that's the case, like if it is the same inn, again, that means the chess piece dude, I say dude, but I don't know the gender, could have spoken to Song Chitong potentially. Okay. We still have 10 minutes left. Let's see how much we can do in 10 minutes. That night, Moran fell sick. He had always had a strong and hearty constitution, but all that meant was that when he did fall sick, he would fall terribly, horribly sick. He lay in bed, sleeping bundled in a thick quilt. He dreamt of things from his past life, dreamt of how he had tormented Chuaning, dreamt of Chuaning struggling beneath him, of Chuaning dying in his arms. When he awoke, with a start to the howling wind and a cold rain outside, he felt around for the flint to light the candle. No matter how he tried, the flint wouldn't spark. In a fit of frustration, he threw it aside. He raked his hands over his face and pulled harshly at his own hair, and the jut of his throat heaved as he let out the grief-stricken howl of a pained beast. He had escaped death, escaped blame, but he couldn't escape his own conscience. It scared him that he was sometimes unable to tell dreams from reality, continuously checking whether he was asleep or awake. It hurt, feeling like his very soul had split into two, that of the past lifetime and that of the present, the two tearing into one another. The present cursing the past for being a ruthless lunatic with blood-soaked hands. The past snapped back just as fiercely, demanding to know why the present was pretending he had never done anything wrong in his life. How did he have the nerve to walk this earth? The soul of the present bellowed at the soul of the past. Mo Wei Ye, Ta Xianjun, you scum of the earth, why did you commit such grievous sins? How am I to make up for all you've done? I want to start over, but you haunt me so. In my dreams, in my drunkenness, in the dimming light of fading candles, jumping out when I least expect it to curse me, with that twisted face, cursing me with a thousand deaths, cursing me with retribution and reprisal. You say this is all a dream that will one day shatter. You sneer that sooner or later I will wake to find myself back at Wushan Palace. You laugh viciously and remind me no one cares for me, that I killed the only person willing to die for me with my own hands. But was that me? No, it wasn't me, it was you, Ta Xinjun. It was you, Mo Wei Ye. I'm not you. There's no blood on my hands. I can start over. The other half of his soul was shrieking as well, its sharp-fanged mouth open wide and a distorted face. Weren't you feeling guilty? Didn't you mess it all up? Then why don't you just die? Why don't you repay all those people you hurt in your past life for no good reason with your own blood? You beast, you pretender, how are you different from me? I am Mo Wei Ye, but so are you. You carry all the memories and bear all the sins of the past. You'll never be free of me. I'm your nightmare, your inner demon. I'm that abominable soul of yours that will one day be judged by the heavens. Start over. Why the hell should you get to? The nerve of you. What right do you have to start over? You're deceiving everyone, even the people who love you. Any good deed you do is merely to ease that tiny, pathetic burden of guilt in your heart. Is it not? Moran, do you dare let them learn the kind of man you were in your past life? Do you dare let Chuaning find out that in their last lifetime it was you who cut his neck and bled him out, made his life a living nightmare, that it was you who blighted the world, transformed it into hell on earth, overrun with famine and disasters, one after another? It was you. You beast. We are one and the same. There's no way out of this one. I am you, Moran. You know it to be true. Backed into a corner, and on the verge of losing his mind, Moran groped around the bedside for the flint and the steel again, tried to light the candle to drive back the grisly darkness of night, but even the candle rejected him. Even the candle didn't care to save him. He was alone in the dark, hands shaking uncontrollably as he tried over and over to strike flints with steel, over and over again. But there was no spark. There was no spark. He finally collapsed onto the bed and burst into shuddering sobs. He recited apologies again and again. In the black of the night, there seemed to be a crowd gathered around the bed, each shadowy, wavering figures cursing him, demanding his life in vengeance, howling at him that he was once evil and would always be so. Moran didn't know what to do. Helpless, he muttered again and again, I'm sorry. But no one paid him any mind. Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Same in Yewangshi paid for her freedom at that time. Okay, so that's still a possibility. We'll shelve that possibility then as something to make note of. Okay, there's a beautiful image, but let me just read this page first. No one wanted to forgive him. His head was scalding hot, and his heart felt like it was on fire. Suddenly, he seemed to hear a soft sigh. When he opened his eyes, he saw Chuaning among the phantom shadows, looking just as he had, white robes falling loosely to the floor, wide, sweeping sleeves, features elegant and defined. He stepped forward and came to a stop before the bed. Shizun. Moran choked out between sobs. I don't deserve to see you again, do I? Chuaning said nothing, merely picked up the flint and the steel. He calmly lit the candle, but it remained dark in the face of Moran's best efforts. Where his Shizun was, there was a flame. The symbolism. I'm okay. Where Chuaning was, there was light. He stood by the candle holder with his long lashes downcast, then calmly looked up at Moran and gave him a small, serene smile. Go back to sleep, Moran. See, the candle is lit now. Don't be afraid. Moran's heart felt like it had been brutally crushed by something heavy, and his head hurt so terribly he felt it might split. These words sounded so familiar, as if he'd heard them before, but he couldn't remember where. Chuaning swept his sleeves aside and sat at Moran's bedside. The rain outside was bitterly cold, but it was warm in the room, and the night was no longer dark. I'll stay with you, Chuaning said. Moran's heart ached at these words, clenching and twisting itself into a knot. Shizun, don't leave. He clutched at Chuaning's hand until under his broad sleeve. I won't. It'll be dark again if you leave. Oh! I'm fine. Just quickly appreciate this beautiful art, and then I think I'm gonna call it a night because I feel a little bit emotionally wrecked. Not gonna lie, but it is truly stunning art. Okay, let's just see. Okay, no, hold on. There is we're almost at the end of the chapter, so I might as well finish. Moran was crying, feeling embarrassed. He covered his eyes with his other hand. Please don't leave me behind. I'm begging you. I really don't want to be the emperor anymore. Shizun, please don't throw me away. Moran, please. Perhaps it was the fever making him feel weak and dizzy. Perhaps it was because some part of him knew this was only a dream, and that running would vanish when he woke. He muttered over and over again, please don't throw me away. That night, the icy raindrops outside pelted against the window, like the knocking of countless vengeful ghosts trying to rush inside and claim his life in retribution. But inside Moran's dream, Chuaning lit a candle, and that small halo of light drove away the ceaseless chill. He heard Chuaning say, all right, I won't leave. You won't leave? I won't leave. Moran opened his mouth. He wanted to say thanks, but the only sound that emerged was a whimper, the kind of pitiful whine a dog might make when gingerly trying to gain someone's favor. That's what you all say, that you won't leave, that you won't abandon me. Teetering on the edge of slumber, Moran muttered dazedly, with heavy loaded eyes, but then you all end up leaving anyway. No one wants me. I've been a stray dog half my life. Every time someone takes me in, they discard me within a few days. I'm so tired. Really, Shizun, I'm really so tired. I can't do it anymore. I can't keep going. He was like a starving stray dog with no home to return to, with mangled paws and a grimy coat of fur, with no choice but to fight over food with beggars and feral cats to survive. There was no trust left in his heart after being abused for so long. If someone were to crouch nearby, a pet might expect to be fed, but a stray would only expect to be hit with a rock. Anxious and on edge, he kept walking, snarling at anyone and everyone. This was his fate. Shizun, if someday you don't want me anymore, you just kill me. Don't throw me away. He murmured between sobs. Oh, sorry, give me a second. It hurts too much to be discarded again and again. I'd rather die. His fever burned so high it turned him into a muddled mess. He couldn't tell where he was, and even forgot who the person in his dream had been. Mom. The last thing he muttered before passing out was, it's getting dark. I'm scared. I want to go home. Oh, okay. Okay, now we're calling it a night because damn. Okay, let's just quickly talk because I saw the title and it looks promising. The next title is Shizun Awakens. I really hope they're not bluffing. Okay, that is the end of tonight's read along. Sorry for all the emotions, but I hope you guys still enjoyed it. And we're gonna be back for the next read along on Thursday, same time, so 9 p.m. SA time, 7 p.m. GMT, if that means anything to you. If you want, you can just check what your time conversion is from GMT. It should do the job, but I am gonna try and put the stream up relatively early, like I did for today's, so you have enough time to press the notifications if you want to be reminded of it. But yay, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we are in for another bout of pain and suffering, I see. But I'm kind of excited for it, not gonna lie. I just hope she's okay. But that is a new concern that has just blossomed in my heart. And I'll see you guys on Thursday. 再见。